afternoon. Welcome, Haley. This session is to get to know the faculty in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for Virtual Path Day. So I have some questions for our professor, our guest here, and then afterwards, Haley, you're welcome to ask some questions or get some more information. So we'll get started. So Professor Brewer, if you could let us know who you are and what you teach at CCRI.
So my name is Cassandra Brewer. I've been teaching at CCRI for 13 years, and I teach anywhere from Math Emporium, which is Math 0095, up to pre-calculus. We have classes higher than that. It's just I stop at pre-calculus, just where I go. And my specialties are Math Emporium and business mathematics, anything related to business as well.
Great, thanks. So being a mathematics professor, this is kind of not a tricky question, but an easy question, really. What programs are your courses part of?
So astonishingly, I don't think there's many programs that you don't need at least one math class. So we have some math intensive programs, like engineering would require a great deal of math. Business requires more classes of math than people know usually, but pretty much I don't know many programs that don't involve at least one math class. So unfortunately, I don't know if that's fortunately or unfortunately for Haley or someone else.
It probably depends on your experiences in math for sure.
Yep.
So I happen to know that you have a lot of experience in other areas other than mathematics. So what's drawn you to be teaching in mathematics?
So I was drawn to mathematics. I was good at it from maybe like a young age, but I also enjoyed chemistry. And originally my advisor was like, oh, why don't you put chemistry and math together and do pharmacy? But I wasn't a big fan of biology. And the other thing is I'm very outgoing, and pharmacy doesn't tend to be the most outgoing people. So I wanted to find something that fit my personality a little bit better. So I started tutoring at URI at their, they have an academic enhancement center. I was also working at a company working with an autistic child. And the two of those things, I'm like, wow, maybe I should make a career out of this. I really like tutoring. I really like working with children. Originally, I decided to go for high school teaching. And then somewhere in my student teaching, I'm like, you know what? I want to do something more than just high school. So went back for my master's. And here I am today. This is actually my dream job. I wanted this job when I applied. I know it sounds really cheesy, but I got my dream job. So
it doesn't sound cheesy to me, but we're the folks who stuck around in college forever. So
yeah,
we're still
they call us professional college students. So.
That's right. My mother calls me that.
Yep.
But under my picture in my senior yearbook was English professor, and I made it there. So
okay, well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what attributes do students who are successful in your courses share? How do you be a good math student other than just maybe some talent for math?
And actually, it's interesting you said that, because yeah, I was gravitating towards math because I was good at it. But I've also seen students successful that express that they're not necessarily good at math, but they're willing to practice. So I think that's a big one. Okay with knowing if you're not good at something, that you're willing to practice to make yourself better. Some of those students are some of the best students I've ever had that may not be math, focused originally, but the more they practice, the more they get to like the subject. Being organized is a big thing. And I think that goes for any major, not just math. Good with following processes or procedures, analytical, and being good with numbers is okay. But if you're not, you're okay with practicing it to make yourself better.
That makes a lot of sense. It's easy to see how math fits into certain programs, many of which are in the STEM fields. Engineering, it's clear to see. Computer science, it's easy to see. But how do you explain to some students in ones where that connection isn't quite so obvious? Let's say within STEM, maybe biology. Or then if you are talking to students outside of the STEM areas, how do you talk to a student, say, in visual arts or in sociology? why math is important and why it's in their program.
So some of the programs you brought up, like the sociology or visual arts, they take more, I would call it more of a visual math class, math for liberal arts. There's a lot of visuals in there, so it may not be per se that you're, taking away the math concepts, but you're learning critical analytical skills to be, good at any job. So it's not just about taking away the exact math topic, but it's learning those skills to make you stronger to do the career that you're going to need those skills to actually do. So even a surgeon, I've talked to people that have gone into surgery, and pre-med requires some level of math. It's nothing as intense as sometimes a STEM major, and they'll even say I wasn't good at math, but I'll have students who are going into pre-med and they'll be like, well, why is this so important? And I'm like, do you want your surgeon in the middle of their surgery to say, hey, let me look this up, like in their book? So it's just teaching those skills to be able to apply it to your career. It's not going to be maybe an exact direct relation, but indirectly you are learning those skills going through the class, and it's applicable to your other classes in your career as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks. And then I think sometimes people forget that statistics is a big part of a lot of career fields, a lot of academic fields too. And even if you are not planning on using it in your career life, a lot of the social sciences or physical science or anything require beyond an associate's degree, and you're going to have to take math there. So no matter what, it's probably not a good idea to put it off until you get to the 4-year degray as well.
Yep. I always tell people to take their math class first, even if they're scared of it, because if they leave it for last, that's not good.
Yeah. So let's talk about that kind of advising type stuff too. I know that you're very interested in working with students and guiding students even outside the classroom. What do you like about that kind of more advising work?
I get to know them more on a personal level. Like I still get to know my students on a personal level, but when I talk to them, I find out why they interested in a certain career, not just, hey, I picked this career or major and I'm doing it. Because a few of them don't even know why they picked that major. So it's interesting to find out if they really know. Like I'll talk to a student, like I talked to one yesterday, and they said their whole family does radiography. So they've had experience going to see what it's like, and then they're interested in doing it now. And then I'll have another student that has no idea why they picked it. They just saw that they're going to make $70,000 a year, and they're like, that's it. So I do get to know them a little bit more. Why did they pick certain things? What's their background? I like to know that they actually are being guided to the right direction and their goal is to graduate. And I would like to see that they don't take extra classes that don't count for credit. So I think that's big for me. I want to see them succeed and get to where they need to go with the least amount of classes possible.
Yeah. It's mathematics too. Well, it's arithmetic. You're trying to get all of that in and
exactly.
those credits. Right. Well, I want to open it up for Haley if you have any questions for Professor Brewer about math or some other areas, really. Professor Brewer does know quite a bit about the pathways for STEM and some of the other areas as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to take yourself off of mute or type it in the chat, and we'll be glad to get that answered for you. And I did want to let Haley, both you and Professor Brewer know we are recording this, so it does stay around on the Pathways page. And we've gotten quite a few views so far, even just the 2 weeks since we've been doing this. All right. Well, we'll see if Haley has any questions as we go along. But I don't have any more questions prepared, but is there anything else you more? Oh, hi, Haley.
I found out how to mute it.
Oh, great.
Yep, it's good. Well, I don't exactly have any questions at the moment, but I do have like a framework of like a dream going in my mind that I'd like to communicate.
Okay.
Well, I am planning on getting either involved in environmental sciences and or CNC machining.
Okay.
And I want to get involved in CNC machining because I think it involves a great deal to do with the Green New Deal movement, and I'm wondering what kind of skills does one need to be a CNC machinist, and what makes or breaks a career for someone in STEM technology.
Mm. Well, I'm going to do a little bit of Googling on that, but I'm going to let Professor Brewer talk a little bit about, maybe talk about mathematics in the trades, in general, but also its connection to the more environmental technology field, or even biology, marine biology, ecology, those kinds of things.
Have you, Haley, have you thought about doing environmental, like engineering or anything like that? Or you're leaning more towards environmental science?
Well, I'm going through my thoughts and my journaling on my career path.
Yep.
What I'm thinking about is that, ideally speaking, I seem to have like several different branches of interest involving being an environmental specialist, including health, and a civil engineer.
Yep.
Is environmental engineering kind of like the combination between an environmental specialist, including health, and civil engineer?
I would have to look into that, but I know that environmental engineering would involve doing engineering related to the environment. So, things to do with sustainability. There's a lot of things you could do with that. Some people work at the like oil rigs to try to make them more efficient. There's a lot of things you could do with that. In terms of the CNC machining, I'm not too familiar with that, so I would have to look up some things with that. So how did you find out about the CNC machining? I'm just curious.
I found that out by going to Skills for Allen's Future, and I was looking at several different career paths, and CNC machining seems to combine together the scientific part of me along with the mathematical part of me.
No, it's not. This sounds like, very interesting, though. I like learning about you too, because I'm into environmental stuff, and I actually debated going back for environmental engineering too. But you kind of remind me of myself. Like I had too many interests, and I had to like hone them in a little bit. So it's interesting, and it's good that you have all these interests. You need to find something that's going to connect them, or you could do majors and minors, or a major and a master's in something else, like some way to tie them all together. Because I wouldn't say give up on, if you're really interested in certain things, don't give up on one because it's not related to something else. Find a way to tie them all in, because you'll be happier that way.
And also, when dealing with something like environmental technology, that's such a quickly developing field.
Yep.
That it's almost impossible to learn everything there is about it, to know about it right now. So instead, you might want to focus on as you're talking about, the skills that lead up to CNC manufacturing, or engineering, systems technology, those things, because those skills are already known, right? And those skills and those technologies are known things. And then the environmental pieces, of course, look to take classes in ecology or marine biology or things like that, so that you can get the basics of ecosystem management or chemical management or anything like that. But then when things progress in the field and new technologies are developed, you're not catching up with the technological aspects. You're moving ahead with them, and you're all learning that new environmental stuff together. So we do have 2 certificates at CCRI that might be of interest. We have the Advanced Manufacturing Machining concentration within engineering, but then we also have the advanced manufacturing machining certificate. You know, and I don't know for sure if either of those, especially the machining certificate, I'm not sure if they have classes specifically in CNC manufacturing, but I imagine they do in some of the skills that lead to it as well. I'm just looking at what classes are involved in that. Oh, it does. It says, while developing CNC-related skills and knowledge, the certificate will maximize the skills advocated by a manufacturing advisory board. It can be completed part-time in 1 year and full-time in a summer session and 1 semester. All credits can be applied to the associate in science degree in advanced manufacturing technology. So this is a good example, and this happens in the trades quite often, that it's an example of what we call stackable credentials, is that you're working towards a larger thing, that associates of science degree, but along the way, if you choose courses when you have the choice of certain courses, make the choice of the one that also applies to the certificate you want to get. And then what we do is we stack those courses, and then you wind up, you know, this point during your journey towards that associate's, you've already hit that certificate. And then in continuing in your journey towards the associates, you've hit that second certificate. So with the right electives choices and the right math choices, you could leave CCRI with an associate's in science and advanced manufacturing, and also have 2 certificates on top of that as well.
That sounds like a way to tie them all together.
Yeah, yeah. And then look to, you know, some internship experiences with a more environmental more environmental firm or company, or look into kind of those what do they call them? Not incubation firms. Not incubation in the literal physical sense, but those incubation firms, those incubators that are places where folks get together and think about things and try and build those businesses and technology for the future. I know in association with Pathdays, we've been doing a lot of interviews with career partners. And one of the career partners we spoke with is from an organization called See Ahead, SEA Ahead. And they don't do environmental science, but they are one of those incubators for developing business in environmental services trades as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. So what's your major right now at CCRI, Haley?
Right now, my major is general studies.
Okay.
I'm looking to establish a certain, I'm looking to establish a major within the next 6 months or coming to January. So I'm looking to, but before I do that, I want to be able to make sure that I'm thinking everything through. And sure. One of those is what you've mentioned.
Awesome. You know, and kind of a maybe not a halfway point, but a stepping stone to choosing a specific major. At CCRI now, when you come in, you're asked to choose a major, of course, and if you can. But if you can't and you go into general studies, now, just within the past 3 semesters now, you're actually asked to choose one of the academic and career pathways. So you're still working towards that general studies degree, but if you pick one of the 7 paths, one of which is STEM and another of which is environment and sustainability, you still are getting that general studies degree, but instead of saying take any of these electives, we say, okay, you're interested in environment and sustainability and STEM. We narrow the choices down and say, these are the courses you choose from for an elective that will best set you up for most of the majors in that area and most of the transfer as well.
Okay. Do you have a list of courses that I could think about choosing from at the moment, or just general pointers to where I could go on the website for that?
Sure. So the first thing I'm putting in the chat here is a link to get to that on-demand library of the interviews with career partners. So you'll see on there that See Ahead is in there. And we do have another environment technology partner coming up tomorrow. We're recording it, so it'll be on there soon. And that's the last one listed there with Seawind. And we'll have more coming as well. But let me also get you, and I will share my screen here, and some information about the pathways themselves. And here we go. The actual pathways, you'll see that they are divided into 7 categories. And the ones you sounds like you'd be most interested in are environment and sustainability, or STEM. And if you click that learn more, there's a quick video that just talks about the kind of student who tends to be interested in this, you know, the types of problems you like to solve. And then there's also a listing of all the programs there. This is the general listing of it. And then below there are other, the transfer agreements, biotechnology is another certificate in this area. But, you know, we have JAA programs, of course, but being able to see the JAA program list of courses is a benefit to students who aren't in the JAA programs, because you don't have to be officially in that JAA to follow the course sequences. Being in general studies.
JAA?
Pardon?
What's a JAA?
JAA is Joint Admissions Agreement. So that's a statewide office that says if you follow this pathway, you'll go through CCRI and get your associates, and then you're also accepted into either URI or RIC at the same time. But there are quite a few requirements to be accepted into a JAA program. So, I mean, you can see here there's quite a few of them.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you mentioned the biotechnology, because I think that also transfers over to, I think you also have that for the environmental and sustainability track too.
Yes.
And besides the CNC machining, what seems to be my main goal is to pursue my education along with getting involved in the workforce. And if I were to, ideally speaking, I would like both, especially getting educated and actually having some like personal upfront contact with the scientific method, like just not learning about it in a textbook, but actually taking part in it. And I heard about this one program in Westerly Education Center for process technology. To get in, part of it involves biotechnology, and according to the recruiter at Skills for Islands Future, they would be able to possibly get me into Amgen to help with R&D.
That's
and
cool.
That's
and
mainly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, and we spoke with someone. Another one of our career partner interviews is with she started in R&D, and she is in this list as well. Her name is Jen Kerrigan. We just recorded it. The editing should be done soon. She started right out on the manufacturing floor there and worked her way up as she got her degrees, and as she got higher education degrees and graduate degrees. So she'd be someone really interesting for you to take a look at when that is available, and we'll get that on there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
How many?
And the thing is,
I was going to ask you, Haley, how many credits do you have right now? Do you have below 30 or no?
We need to take one more class to get it to 30. I have 27 at the moment.
Because if you have under 30, I think you could still apply for JAA if you're interested.
Okay. And my main concern with getting involved on the manufacturing floor is that I've learned the hard way that doing tasks that involve multitasking and being fast-paced at the same time. Even if I go in with the idea of being the best worker I can be and remaining focused, it doesn't work out. So what I'm wondering is, I'm testing my bias as to whether or not getting involved with R&D on a manufacturing line is going to not be beneficial to me, since I seem to have a problem with multitasking and being fast-paced. And how
Yeah,
I can pursue my education.
I imagine there's a wide range of possibilities in different places, or even within one place. So yeah, it'd be good to kind of look around and see what the environment is like in different companies, and in different sectors of different companies too. But I will say it's sometimes difficult to get a lot of firsthand experience with companies like Amgen, and not because they're bad companies or anything. It's what they do is so proprietary, so kind of under wraps, because there's lots of competition. So sometimes that can be a little difficult. But if you start with something, you see someone who you think you might, click with, talking about all of this with, in one of our career partner videos, they almost always, within that, give their email address or their contact information. And that's a good way to get in there and ask them those questions, and ask them, what is it like to be on that floor? Are you doing many things at once? Are you multitasking? Or do some people get to focus on one thing and doing that one thing well?
Yeah. Okay, so how would I go about networking with doing the first step of networking?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of ways I can tell you. The first step would be, just finding out who these corporations are, and what those things are in the area. Places that you would be able to go to yourself, that you would be able to get there. But also, I want to put in a plug for the virtual job fair that's happening next week on November 12th through CCRI. And it's a little different than your average, event where there's a whole bunch of tables and everyone is there just, get this entry-level job. They're there to talk about all levels of jobs and internship possibilities. So it'll be a really good networking event as well. So I want to go to that page right now. And it is through a platform we have at CCRI called Handshake. And I get to that. There we go. So it's in the career services section of the CCRI webpage, and I'll put this in the chat for you too, so you can click it and be there as long as you need. And just get back to all of these things. Here we are. And this webpage tells you more about the job fair itself. And then there's links to Handshake and a link to register on here. And then also some preparation tips and then a little bit of more information about the different services that are available through career services as well. And one of those is, preparing your resume or completing your Handshake profile, which then gives you the ability to say, oh, Amgen, I saw you at the CCRI job fair. Here's my profile on Handshake. I'm wondering if we can, set some time to talk about the different opportunities at Amgen or wherever it is that you see. And even though a lot of people outside of, let's say, human resources or hiring or training and development have not heard of Handshake, it's not like the old Indeed.com or Monster.com where it was just job listings. This is much more interactive, and lots of employers and industries are using it in throughout Rhode Island and all of New England as well. All right. Well, I definitely, we are at the end of our time for this session, but I hope we've given you some things to look at and given you some resources to go to as well, Haley. But if you have more questions about this. Are you in, so you're at 27 credits, so you're not in your first year at CCRI, I'm going to imagine.
No.
Okay. But that doesn't, you don't necessarily have an assigned advisor, but that doesn't mean you can't seek out an advisor. And the advisors now at CCRI are each of them coming in, you know, getting to know certain ones of the pathways. So you'd likely be able to find an advisor who has gotten to know either the STEM and or the environmental sustainability pathways as well now. All right.
All right.
Right. Well, thank
Yes,
you,
you
so much.
did. You, yeah, I definitely got what I was looking for here, connections, and you gave them to me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that. Professor Brewer, do you have any kind of last thoughts on any of this before we go?
No, I'm impressed with Haley's direction. So you seem like you've got a good head on your shoulders. You seem like you're asking the right questions. So I foresee this being good for you, whatever you decide in the end. But I'm impressed. So
Thank
Haley,
you.
I did just want to ask you one more question. As you know, and as you can see on here, we are recording this, and I usually put the recordings back on the website where the link to the session was. We talked a little bit about your specific path at CCRI, so I just wanted to give you the option of letting us know whether or not you would be okay with this recording going on the website as well.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you both,
Alrighty,
Professor Brewer
thank you.
and Haley, being with us today.
thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
You too.